First joining us on the phone is Marc Molinaro. He's the county executive, a Republican in Dutchess County, New York, to talk about the costs of this pandemic on local communities. First, where is Dutchess County and how many residents live there? How many cases of coronavirus are there as well?
Sure. So Dutchess County is about 90 minutes north of New York City. We're a suburb of a suburb, still significantly impacted. Over 2,000 positive cases in our county. We're monitoring just about that many that are still active. But with New York City obviously being the epicenter, counties like ours at only 295,000 people, we have a major responsibility. Of course, at the same time, we're part of that frontline response. So county governments like ours are helping to respond, to monitor, to track, to test, and ultimately to help rebuild the economy.
And this is personal for you as well.
It is. I know that many families are struggling, and there's so many with loved ones in hospitals. In our case, my father lost his battle with coronavirus about a week ago, went into the hospital, was immediately put on a ventilator, and sadly just had his body shut down over the course of 2 weeks. What I can tell you is that he was surrounded by amazing caregivers, and I think that, in part is something we have to remember. So many people from, the staff on the floor to the doctors and the nurses, all, trying to not only provide the care, but very personally connect families who can't be in the hospital rooms with their loved ones, with the patient. And for me, it was surreal. In some ways, I've been enormously distracted, but the loss is still real. And there are so many others who are dealing with loss like this.
Mr. Molinaro, we're sorry for the loss of your father. And this, at the same time that you're dealing with this, you're dealing with the costs of this for the community. So you talked a little bit about it, but I mean, what do you have to pay for right now, and what are you seeing the impact of that on your budget?
Yeah, I think it's important for Americans to know that the county governments are really responsible for that, that first line of response. We administer 1,900 public health departments across the country. 1,000 public hospitals are county run or administrated. And for all of us, county governments have been effectuating the goals of the federal and state governments. And so the National Association of Counties and leaders, elected officials like myself, are really calling on Congress to provide us the aid necessary to do the work they expect. As Congress today debates expanding the Paycheck Protection Program and Small Business Administration loans, it's our county governments, our staff, who are working day in and day out to be that direct connection with small business owners, Americans out of work, trying to make that connection. But in my county's case, and counties across the country, we've had to establish the testing site. So when the state wants a testing site operated, it's county governments that are buying the tents and staffing with local hospitals. When it comes to identifying confirmed positive cases and then monitoring quarantine and the thousands upon thousands of people who are self-quarantining or precautionary quarantining, we're the ones that have to track and manage those. When somebody dies and loses their battle to this, we're the ones that are making the direct connection to the family and, of course, monitoring the data. And importantly, as the country rolls out antibody testing and really starts to reopen again, as the president and governors want ultimately to occur, it's going to be county government on the front line providing that direct service. In my county alone, we're talking about a $40 to $50 million loss in revenue. At the same time, our employees are gratefully being paid, but they're also being paid to do the job. And in many cases, we've had employees, of course, either sick or out or redirected, doing jobs that are really pandemic focused and not necessarily their original line of work, so to speak. All of that is critical. It's critical for city mayors and the governors and the president, for county governments to be providing this service. So we're asking for the help. NACO has been very aggressive. We're calling on Congress to find within this COVID legislation, 3.5 legislation, approximately $30 billion for county governments to keep doing the work that they need us to do and want us to do.
We just learned in an interview that Senator Schumer did with CNN this morning. Here's a quote from Manu Raju, correspondent with that network, that the senator signals that $150 billion for state and local governments won't be in this deal that they're going to pass this week. The USA Today reports it could be another week or two before Congress then agrees on the fifth economic aid package. Will that be too late? How quickly do you need this money?
Well, you know, many counties are running on fumes, so to speak. So with we have economically sensitive revenues, sales tax, et cetera. That's been in steep decline. And listen, we're not struggling harder than the small business person who had to close their door. We're just making the case that, you know, first of all, $30 billion doesn't cover the costs that county governments are incurring and losing now. Another 2 weeks it's another 2 weeks for us to have to scramble to try to hold things together while doing the work the state and federal government expects of us. You know, and very importantly, you know, local economic development teams like our own in my county, we're the ones that are making the connections for small business owners. We're taking the phone calls, we're administering, we're helping them get through the loan programs. We're the ones taking the calls from the unemployed, trying to connect them with food stamp assistance or unemployment insurance. It's our responsibility. Nobody's complaining. I mean, that's the way we respond to an emergency in America. Local governments are the first line of defense, so to speak, and we're providing that service ably and responsibly, and we're just hopeful that Congress will reconsider as they debate 3.5, and we'll keep pressing as they debate these next bills. And again, we're not asking for something that's outlandish. We want to do the work that the federal government expects us to do. We want to be that direct lifeline to families and businesses and residents, and we want to be able to do it ably and effectively, and we need the help from the federal government to accomplish that.
Marc Molinaro, thank you very much for your for the conversation this morning. We appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. Keep up the good work.